Welcome to our very first episode of Fort Worth Accident Attorney and Law with Aaron Siddique, the podcast about personal injury and car accidents serving Texas, specifically in Fort Worth, Houston. I'm Alexis, and today we're doing something special. We're going to explore the expertise and background of our co-host and expert attorney, Aaron Siddique, in what we affectionately call the U interview. We want to get to know how Aaron Siddique became Aaron Siddique, the founder and managing partner of the Texas-based law firm 1800 The Wolf Accident Attorneys. That's exactly what we're here to explore today. Aaron, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here and to do this and to let the world know why this is the best place to come if you have questions about car accidents.
Before we dive into your personal journey, set the stage for us and tell us where you come from, where you grew up, anything you think is important to tell us.
My goodness, where do I start? So, like many of my clients, I am a hometown kid. So I was born and raised here in the heart of Dallas and Fort Worth, right in the mid-cities. So I went to law school in Florida. However, I came right back here when I was done to set up shop and start my business. I did my undergrad down in Austin at the University of Texas at Austin as well. And then I spent high school running around here on the mean streets of DFW.
All right. So what inspired you to become a lawyer in the first place?
I think my journey was very atypical. A lot of people know from early on what they want to be, and they want to be a firefighter. They want to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a rapper, but that didn't pan out. I didn't decide to become an attorney until much later. And I was telling the story to someone earlier today, actually. I was in business before I became an attorney. So I was an entrepreneur, and I was involved in a lawsuit. And a lady who had ripped me off had actually sued me. And I thought, this is crazy. And I determined in that moment to be the person doing all of the suing and never the person getting sued again. And so it ignited this passion inside of me to go out and I would say fight injustice, but really to step up for the little guy when they've been injured or when they've been wronged.
That's such an incredible story. I was just going to say, a lot of people don't just wake up one day and decide to become a lawyer. There's usually a story behind it. So you answered that question perfectly for me there. Tell me more about that. What was it about that experience for you that made you say, you know what, I think this is what I'm supposed to do?
Well, it was a combination of things. My background actually, when I became an attorney, and I'll circle back, but when I became an attorney was in litigation, and I started in personal injury, but also I worked for some Fortune 200 companies in-house, and I managed a team of a lot of corporate folks in multiple states. But my passion was always owning my own business and helping the little guy. Again, my skills and expertise took me into corporate America. I did a lot of civil litigation there. But my first love, believe it or not, was personal injury law, just because of how much of an impact you can actually make on people's lives. So I myself was involved in a very serious car accident when I was 19 and was lucky to walk away from that. And then actually my younger brother, he was also involved in a very serious car accident. And so it's like, it's in my DNA,
Wow.
Going back to my grandmother, she lost her life in a car accident where someone else was at fault. So I really do feel very passionate about representing people in a way when it comes to personal injury, car accidents, vehicle accidents, things like that, in a way that comes from a place of understanding. Some attorneys have never been in a car accident. They've never lost a loved one. So they don't really know what it means to fight for that person that's been injured in that way.
Wow. So it was almost written in the stars for you.
It was, right? It was actually, if you look up at night, it's right beneath the Big Dipper.
I'll have to look for it tonight.
You will see 1-800 The Wolf Accident Attorneys.
What is your educational background and key credentials? So once you made that decision to pursue law, walk me through it. Where'd you go to law school? What's your educational background? Are there any key credentials or certifications that are important for people to know about?
Yeah, so I'll take it back even one step further. So in undergrad, I went to, again, the University of Texas at Austin. So hopefully all of you fans and Aggies don't hold that against me. I am the best lawyer for the job and I will treat you just like you went to uni, even if you didn't. But I started at uni, and while I was there, I took a test called the LSAT, which is the basic entrance exam, and then decided after that I'd like to go work for a few years before I go to law school. So I was out. I owned my own business. I was a small business owner here in DFW. I owned different commercial real estate properties and owned and operated a dry cleaner, actually, which is a really difficult business to be in, but it taught me a lot of interesting life lessons. And decided a little bit later that after the incident we discussed before, where I was sued, that I was going to go back to law school. I applied all over, and really what drove my decision, I went down to South Florida and went to a law school called St. Thomas University School of Law. It was heralded for its diversity. It's one of the most diverse law school populations in the U.S. And I was also just drawn to South Florida. Who wouldn't want to go down and go to school in Miami? So made the decision to go there. So I'm actually licensed in Florida as well as in Texas. I passed the bar exam first try. I finished in the top 10% of my law school class, cum laude. And while I was in law school, I did something that's called moot court. I actually traveled the U.S. and argued mock appeals in competitions. So during law school, I started developing those trial skills that were necessary, and kind of gives you a leg up on your colleagues and your the students that go to school with you. If they're not doing something to practice for the real world, then they already started at disadvantage. So in terms of education, it was UT, then St. Thomas, and then I took the bar exam in Florida and Texas and passed both of those and became licensed probably 15 years ago now.
Wow, that's awesome. Where were you at before law school? What were you studying or doing at that point?
So I thought I wanted to be in politics, and we've all seen the shit show that politics is. So I'm glad I didn't go that direction. I thought I wanted to be a lobbyist. I can't stand lobbyists now, so I'm glad I didn't go that direction. But I was studying political science and business at UT. I majored in political science and a business minor down in Austin, and decided that I wanted to go work for a few years before I tried anything else.
Awesome. So what did you think law would be like versus what you actually discovered once you got into it?
You know, there's this interesting misconception, and I had it in my mind as well, that it's justice for all, and that there's always nobility, and that there's always justice for people on the other side of it, and that I'd be arguing in front of the Supreme Court. And my mind was really singularly focused on what we see in TV and movies, and like, you want the truth, you can't handle the truth, like that kind of stuff, like big dramatic scenes unfolding in real life. And it's really not that. It's I was quite surprised that my perception of what being a lawyer was and what it became in reality was so different. Outside of the drama, we see drama in here every day, but the world is a cruel place, and it's not always fair. And that's why hiring the best lawyer that's willing to get out in the trenches and fight for you like family makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of injustice and a lot of people get taken advantage of, particularly after a car accident, if they're not adequately represented.
Where are you originally from, and what brought you to Texas? How does that shape how you practice today? I'm really curious about your roots. Are you originally from Texas, or did you come here for your practice? If you're not from here originally, what brought you here, and how does your background influence the way you approach your work?
Yeah, so actually my first word as a baby was y'all. I was born here. So it's in my DNA. It really wasn't, but it feels like it was. So yes, I was born right here in Dallas, Fort Worth. My cultural heritage, my father, he is Middle Eastern. My mother, she's the all-American girl, blonde hair, blue eyes. And so my dad having immigrated here, we were taught at a very young age to work really hard for everything we have and that we had growing up. And so you don't realize it while it's unfolding when you're a kid, what an impression it makes on you to see someone out, just pulling together, your mother and your father each working a job or two jobs and going to school and then starting their own businesses and working for someone. And it was just, my house was nonstop hustle. And we had family members that we would bring over here, and my mom and dad would help teach them English and then help them get jobs and get into school. And so I actually have almost 120 family members here in the Metroplex that are doctors, that are other lawyers, that are engineers. And it all started early in life from those lessons. And so my parents taught our entire extended family a lot of those lessons, and they certainly instilled it in us. And so how has that impacted me and the way I practice? I'll tell you my motto. I've got two mottos. One is every day I'm hustling, and that is in every sense of the word. It's for my clients, it's for myself, it's for my business, it's for my family, it's for Dallas, it's for Fort Worth, it's for Texas, and that will never stop. And the second motto I have is Winston Churchill, never give up. And that is because you don't know what is on the other side of that last breath or that last attempt. So there is no quit in us. There's no quit in me. I learned that at a very early age, and that carried over into how I live my life and how I run my business.
That's incredible. So the hustle's always been there since you were born. I love that. So is your practice strictly Texas-based, or do you cover other jurisdictions as well?
We have offices throughout Texas. As I mentioned before, we're also licensed in Florida. And so we also partner with firms in other states. So anybody with any question about an injury or a car accident in any state, really, I would encourage them to reach out to us. But I'd say a big bulk of our business is all throughout Texas, all throughout Florida. And we have plans to put our own offices in New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Louisiana soon. But we are equipped and set up to help folks in those states as of now.
Awesome. That's great. So you specialize in personal injury law. Within that, are there specific types of cases you focus on most, and why those areas? Personal injury is a pretty broad category. I know 1-800-THE-WOLF Accident Attorneys handles motor vehicle accidents, slip and falls, wrongful death cases. But within personal injury law, are there specific types of cases you and your team focus on most, and what drew you to those particular areas?
So I really think the staff that we've put together here, they've been handpicked, and it's been a meticulously curated environment here to bring in the best of the best from other firms. We don't really have attrition, but I would say that really makes us the point of the spear, so to speak, when it comes to anything commercial, big rig accidents, 18-wheeler, wrongful death cases. We have the expertise, we have the know-how, we have the knowledge, we take the time. I think that's what's really important about us when it comes to those case types. So I think we are just unique and built a little bit different when it comes to commercial vehicle accidents. And then I would say that what our bread and butter is are car accidents and slip and falls. The majority of the injuries that are occurring out on our streets, they happen every day. It's a volume thing, but we've kind of perfected our practice to where it's equal parts science and art. No two attorneys are created the same. And so to recognize, create, and bring the most value resulting in the highest and best settlement, you have to know what you're doing and you have to have the right people. So commercial cases we excel at, run-of-the-mill car accidents and slip and trip and falls where you're injured on a premises as a result of somebody else's negligence or a defective or dangerous condition, we can certainly help you with.
What is it about those cases that keeps you doing this work? What intrigues you? What keeps you going every day with it?
It all starts with one common thing and then quickly spirals into the most interesting and intense fact patterns. And the root of that is people. I'm just a people person. I'm a lover of people and humans, and I have found a lot of satisfaction in helping others. It brings me a lot of happiness to do that. So I would say the common thread is the injury, car accident, but what keeps me so dialed in is the result I know I'm going to get for those people and how I'm going to help them walk through a lot of dark, hard times to potentially be rewarded or made whole on the other side of that. And that's an entire life cycle. The life cycle of every case, like I said, it starts the same, but then it quickly unfolds into this very interesting fact pattern. And I could sit here all day and tell you about the crazy things that we've seen and that we've worked on. And that will explain to you why it's exciting to get up and come to work. You just don't know how you're going to help someone that day and what kind of crazy things you're going to hear. It's, you get on, you start scrolling through Instagram and TikTok, and your algorithm's like showing you all this madness. You know how it goes. The universe has its own algorithm here in this office. So the craziest things come through that door and call these phones, and we're always excited and up to the challenge to help.
So before we move on, I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there about personal injury lawyers. What's one thing you wish more people understood about what you and other personal injury lawyers actually do for accident victims?
We bring value. We create value. And I think a lot of people call our office or call other attorneys and they assume that they're just going to get value for them, something that they're already owed. Yes, you're owed something, but the right attorney will create value beyond belief. You could have two attorneys with the same fact pattern and have very different results. And some people come in here and they say, hey, I was in an accident. Liability is already established. The other side already admitted it. Aren't you the same as the next guy? And the answer is no. So I'd say that's the first one. Find an attorney whose settlement results are because they know how to create, document, preserve the evidence, and build real value in your case. And then the second thing is just a general misconception about all attorneys. Some people believe they cannot afford our services. And what 1-800 The Wolf Accident Attorneys is built on, our value system is that we're here to help everybody, no matter what their financial circumstances are. And so we operate on what's known as a contingency fee basis. That means you don't have to come in here with a dollar. You get a free consultation. We're going to hear about your case. You don't have to pay us a dime. That's not true for all other law firms or law types. You are going to also not pay us a penny unless and until we recover on your case. And we write it straight into our contracts. If we do not recover money, no matter how much this law firm has spent on your behalf, you do not owe us a thing. And so I think there's this misconception that you can't afford us. That's not true. It's actually you can, because we're going to go out and prove what we're worth before you have to spend a dime. We're going to put the money in your hand, the money in your pocket, and then we're going to earn our fee after. So we get paid when you get paid. And on that journey to getting you that money, we're going to pay for everything. We're going to cover the costs of filing fees. We're going to pay for expert witnesses. We wouldn't invest so heavily if we didn't believe in the clients and cases. But misconception, I can't afford the attorney. Absolutely not true.
What's the mission behind 1-800 The Wolf Accident Attorneys?
So from the day we were founded, we have a value system here. It's relentless, aggressive representation. That's the first. And the second is that every client that comes in here gets treated exactly the same as our family. So I would not advise any of my clients, nor would anybody on my team, any differently than we would advise our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, and our fathers. And their causes become ours. They say that being a lawyer or working in a law firm is high stress. And I will agree with that. And I will tell you why. And it is because we truly here at this firm internalize every one of our clients' issues as our own. And so it's hard to go home at night and just turn it off when we know that you're in pain, when we know that you don't have a car to drive to work, when we know that you maybe don't know how you're going to pay your rent because you've been in this accident and you can't go to work. So, our value system is simple. We're relentless. You've heard me say it before. Never, never, never give up. We're aggressive. And that the last thing I said was representation. A lot of other attorneys fail to adequately represent their clients, either because they're uninformed, they don't care, or they're lazy. And I'm not knocking them. Different strokes for different folks. But you will learn very quickly by the level of communication and how a team treats you with empathy or not, whether you're in the right place. So the values that drive us are just that. It's relentless pursuit on behalf of people we consider family.
What are the core services your firm provides?
We provide litigation services for people that have been injured in car accidents, slip and falls, any time that someone has been injured as a result of the negligence of another. We provide soup to nuts legal representation. That means demand letter drafting, negotiation, claims management, anything that you can think of. We also help our clients get the medical services that they may need. A lot of people come in here and don't have insurance, and that's just a reality of the world that we're living in. So we help with that. And if a lawsuit needs to be filed, we filed the lawsuit. We hire the experts, and we take a case from or an injury or a client from the very beginning of their journey to the end. We hold their hand every step of the way so that there's really all the guesswork and anxiety is taken out of it.
And what are the specific types of clients or industries you find yourself working with most often?
Clients are typically the client profile are typically people that have been hurt or injured. You heard me say commercial vehicle accidents, 18-wheeler accidents. Sometimes we're not dealing with the clients because the clients were deceased or killed. Wrongful death cases. So some of our clients are actually the family members of those that are deceased, and we're bringing claims on behalf of the deceased person's estate, or we're bringing wrongful death claims or survival statute claims for the family members or the victims.
So when you think about why this firm exists, what are you and your team ultimately trying to accomplish?
I hate to be cliche, I really do, but we're trying to change lives, and I can give you an example of that. I firmly believe that we are different, and we take the time to evaluate everyone's claims. Whether we could tell at the first call that this may not be a good fit for us, we're going to find the firm or the person that is a good fit, but we're going to evaluate the claims thoroughly. My office manager went through a case that 5 other attorneys had said no to. So I guess we were the 6th call, and she went through the fact pattern, and she came to me and said, I believe that we can help this person. And I was all about it. Let's go. She had been injured while riding in a truck with her husband at work. Now, most people are looking at this going, your own husband crashed the vehicle, and what? You're going to sue your husband? And my answer and our team's answer was, yes, we are, because it's the only way to make a recovery. And we recovered $1 million for this woman. Now, they were out on the road every day, salt of the earth, hardworking people, but they wouldn't have made that kind of money in their lifetime. And we were able to put enough money in their pocket that they were able to get off the road, buy a house, and literally change their life. So when I say that we're in the business of changing lives, I mean it. And not everybody's accident is going to be that catastrophic. Not everybody's change is going to be that impactful, but change is change. And if we can make those folks that have been in these accidents life 1% easier or 1% better, well, then damn it, we did our job. And that's what I get out of bed to do.
Yeah, that's incredible. Has that mission evolved since you first started the firm, or has that stayed pretty consistent? I think I know the answer, but love to hear you.
No, I'll tell you, I'm going to be honest, because the knock on lawyers is they're liars, and I think that's a discredit to the profession. There are a few bad apples out there, but yeah, I think every young person, it's a maturity thing. Every young person comes out, and if they're a lawyer or they're whatever, they're 50 Cent got in their head, they think they're going to get rich or die trying. And I think sometimes things start as simple as that. I'm here to open a business and to make money, and pretty quickly the work that you do becomes impactful. So I'd say there was a minute there where it was like, G-Unit, let's go, let's get this money, let's get the money for the clients. And then I realized that a lot of my clients could care less about the money. And then guess what happened? I stopped caring about the money. We really get a lot of money for people, but what I care about is, like I said, changing lives. It's not just financially, physically. Right. The vendors and the physicians that we work with that understand how to document these injuries and treat these injuries have taken people that have been in pain for years and given them the ability to go back and enjoy whatever it is they're doing. And even as simple as going for a walk or sitting in a chair. So the mission has always been to help, but I think my take on that has evolved when I've seen that taking stress out of lives, getting them physically back to where they were, taking the anxiety out of the accident has meant more to every single one of my clients than the money. Now, the money is good. Like, people tell you that money doesn't solve problems or money doesn't give you happiness. I just bullshit. It does. But so we do that really well as well.
So walk me through your case strategy. When you take on a personal injury case, how do you develop your approach? I'm really curious about the strategic side of this. So when you take that case on, let's say a car accident with significant injuries, how do you develop your strategy? What's going through your mind in those early stages?
Yeah, so it starts really, and I know this is going out to the masses, and some people would not sit here and want to give you the secrets, right? Like, this is my actual secret sauce. Like, you're coming to Raising Cane's, I'm not telling you what's in that delicious cane sauce, but I'm going to give you the cane sauce because I think this is a really simple recipe. And I know wholeheartedly I could share this information with every one of my competitors, and maybe 10% will listen, and maybe 1% of those people will have the strength to get up and try it. And I already know I'm so far ahead of them, it doesn't matter. So I hope that doesn't come across. That's just in that.
Yeah.
And so I share openly. I'm friendly with my competitors. I discuss my strategies with them, what works in business and marketing and for our clients. Because if I'm not the right fit for someone, then I want them to go where they believe that is a better fit, and I want them to have good results regardless. So we take a pretty streamlined approach. Number one, it's the investigation, and so that really begins with everything from coverages available to potential parties in the zone of responsibility. And where I think a lot of attorneys, if you're listening, I know some of you have asked me this before, but if you are listening, your case will be made or broken in the first week. If you're not counseling your clients to document to investigate, if your team is not asking, what are the injuries? I mean, very specific questions. We take questionnaires that are actually used by physicians in neurology units to assess for traumatic brain injuries. You know how many people go with undiagnosed traumatic brain injuries? I don't think there's a ton of law firms that are asking these questions at intake. If you miss a TBI diagnosis, you could crush the value of your case later on if you settle it because you just thought it was a headache. At our intake, it starts there. The questions we ask our client, the coverages, the potential defendants. There have been times where we have uncovered defendants that you may not have considered that could have been responsible. For example, we had a girl crash. She crashed her car, and we go back and we found out she was overserved at a bar. Therefore, the bar becomes responsible. Sometimes people are sleepy. Are you asking on your intake if the defendant was driving during work hours or driving a work vehicle? We have been able to get into commercial policies because we've been able to prove that defendants were driving during the course of employment. Not everybody asked those questions. So I could go on and on about this, but we ask questions, and then we ask the next question, and then we ask the next question until we're satisfied that we know everything that happened and everyone that was potentially involved in every injury. That's step one.
Wow.
Step two, we make sure our clients are being seen by qualified medical professionals who are best suited to treat their injury. We don't force them to go anywhere. We don't tell them to go anywhere, but we present them with options that allow them to get quality medical care. And the providers and doctors that you send or recommend your clients to go to will go a long way. They're either credible, the facilities are nice, they're convenient, the providers are very important. The care that they get and the follow-up care that they get from our team, because life comes at people fast. And if you don't have a law firm that's going to stay accountable with you and to follow up with you, we get it. You have work, you have kids, you got that hot date tonight, you'd rather not go get treatment, like whatever, we're going to follow up and we're going to ask you and we're going to help hold you accountable. There are a lot of firms that plug you into their system because they're designed to be a mill or a volume mill, so to speak. I call you and ask you how you're feeling. And so we document every several weeks. We have a rule here that no longer than 21 days goes by without us proactively reaching out to our clients. Communication, that's lacking. And you can find out a lot from a client, particularly in commercial case settings or these injuries, and you can find out a lot. And so all of these things work together synergistically to create value. And then the one part that no one can really take away from you is your reputation. And some firms have a reputation with insurance companies for accepting settlement values for less than the medical bills. Example, we were getting lowballed on a case. I think the medical bills were around $20,000, and the insurance company just kept offering $15,000 to settle the case. And my question to them was, why would I do this? And they said, other law firms do. And so that should tell you right there that the insurance company is paying attention to what your lawyer will settle a case for. And they damn well know that we're not going to settle it for less than the medical bills here because we've drawn the line. Why is that? Some attorneys, they're just interested in getting a quick settlement because their fee doesn't really change. We don't do that here. We fight to maximize the case settlement values, and we put our clients' interest above ours. And I think that's another aspect that sets us apart. We're lean, we're boutique, and we actually care. So those things, when you start cooking with those handful of ingredients, the sky's the limit. So reputation is important. If your attorney is known to do that, And you don't know if your attorney is known to do that or not, because they're just going to put up the settlement value and they're not going to give you any context behind it. I settled this case for $100,000. Okay, cool, but they had $500,000 worth of medical bills and they walked away with nothing. Who cares? Like, we don't ever put our clients in a position where they're not net positive and walking away with money, and going to say that every single case is amazing and that we can always turn water into wine, but we'll at least turn it into some Kool-Aid or something, get some flavor, like, for sure.
That's great. I'm curious what the first thing you look at when deciding whether to take on a case. Like, what's that deciding factor for you? Like, okay, yeah, we can do this.
Well, we look at our clients and we look at our clients' credibility, and we start there. Are you a good human? Maybe you're not. Do you just need help? So we assess the client credibility, and the basic facts of how the accident or injury occurred. So that's going to kind of save time for both the client and the attorney, because we're making a liability assessment up front. And again, I mentioned we investigate thoroughly. And so until we are completely satisfied that we can help you, that liability has been established, that you're credible in a disputed situation, we call witnesses. We'll talk to witnesses on police reports. We'll get body cam footage to validate what our clients are saying, to disprove what the defendants are saying. These are things other people don't do. And they cost us money, and they cost us some time on the front end. But we'd rather invest there and set the appropriate expectations up front. So first thing we look at is you, the client, and we listen to what you're telling us, and then we determine liability and fault, and then we move on from there.
How involved are your clients in the strategic decisions along the way? Are they pretty involved, or are they like, hey, Aaron, we trust you, take it away?
So that's an easy one to answer. Our clients are 100% in the driver's seat. I tell them at each juncture. So we explain the entire process to them in terms of dealing with the insurance companies, helping coordinate stuff, things like that. That's on us. So there's a clear expectation setting at the beginning and a delineation of work. Like, here's your job. Your job is just to go get better and to feel better, to follow your physician's instructions. And then our job is to handle the rest. And then at each strategic juncture, we will have a discussion where we give you our professional opinions on where we're at. And I tell our clients, the one thing we can agree on is that we work for you. You're the boss. We're going to give you, based on our knowledge, training, and experience, because we've been here thousands of times before, we're going to tell you what we think. And if we come to an agreement that that's fair and that it's the best result, we'll settle it. And if we don't, we'll file a lawsuit. So our clients are involved every step of the way, but we are carrying the workload and the burden for the clients. They get to sit back and then have the conversations and tell us yes, no, great, but they are involved in that sense. They're the boss of their own case.
I love it. That's great. So what's your philosophy when it comes to negotiation versus litigation? How do you approach that decision with your clients?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, because life is a negotiation. This conversation right now is a negotiation. People are going to hear this and look at this and decide, do I want what he's offering? And so from the second we start working on a case, we operate under the assumption we're already negotiating. And so once we file litigation, that hasn't changed. Sometimes litigation is just another form of negotiation. And in my opinion, in all of the cases I've been involved in, whether they've been personal injury or on the corporate side for some of the large corporations that I've worked for and done litigation for, you have to create leverage, and you have to be willing to say no and to walk away. I think there's an old saying, scared money don't make money. If you're scared to lose what you don't have, how are you ever going to get on the other side of that? So Don't get me wrong. We understand that sometimes this money means everything to our clients, but we don't negotiate scared. If it's fair and it makes sense, we're pragmatic, we're practical, and we're known for that. I've had insurance adjusters say, oh, it's you. Let's just lay all the cards on the table. We don't have to do in the song and dance, because part of the negotiation's been done through our credibility and through our reputation. And there are some attorneys that will negotiate soft on the front end, just think, oh, we can handle it in litigation. No, if we can settle your case without filing a lawsuit, we're going to do it. I've had other attorneys, defense attorneys, try to fight me at mediation because I've created so much leverage. By the time we got there, they already lost, and they expected me to say something different. And the answer was no, it's not enough. And so at the end of the day, it either is or it isn't. So litigation is for when it isn't fair. And if it's not, Great, let's go. We're always ready for a good tussle. And we have some of the best litigation attorneys, in my opinion, in the country and the state here. They've been in the trenches. They've tried a ton of cases. And so, that those negotiation tactics and advice that we give our clients come from experience and from reputation.
Can you give a sense of how often your cases settle versus go to trial?
They settle when they make a fair offer, and they go to trial when they just talk that shit, and we have to just beat them over the head sometimes. So, like I said, we have a reputation, and our reputation is if you don't present a fair settlement offer, we're going to fight you tooth and nail in litigation. But in terms of numbers and speaking generally, a high percentage of our cases settle. I'll try to put a number to that, but I'm just speaking generally. It's 70, 80%, something like that, of our caseload generally gets done without having to file a lawsuit. That's good because it costs less in terms of expert witness fees, filing fees. It's ultimately costs the client less in terms of fee. And if you can do it, you spare the hassle, time, and expense, because time is money and the litigation process takes a long time. So 70, 80%, more or less, we get done without filing suit. And then you ask me what cases go to trial. I'd say there's a distinction between filing a lawsuit and going to trial. So of the 70, we'll just call it 80%. Of the 80% cases pre-suit that get settled, the 20% remaining, those go to litigation. We file a lawsuit. About 90% of those settle eventually during the litigation process without going to trial. So you really only have a small percentage of cases of your overall docket that are likely to result in a trial. And that's because by the time we filed suit, usually we're not even fighting about who's at fault. We're fighting about value. And if you've done a good job of documenting value, creating value, preserving value on the front end, it's not going the distance because you've already beat them. We've already beat them before we go to trial, and they know that. So only a very small percentage where there's contested liability, or there is a really where you're really far off in terms of what the case value is.
So you kind of touched on it, but what's the reality of going to trial for a client? Say the time, the stress, the uncertainty, like what's the realistic approach to that? How is that for the client?
So a lot of times people ask me, and I'm gonna kind of break this up into two parts and answer a question you didn't ask because I think it's relevant. People ask me about the timeline of their case. Hey, how long is this going to take? And I talk about it in terms of, well, if we settle it before trial, and if we file a lawsuit, then we go the distance. Pre-suit cases, we track this metric in our office, and I think it's important. Again, this is information for other attorneys that may be listening. We call it time on desk. How long is the life cycle of your case going on inside of our law firm? And so that number, right, there's outliers, but generally, if the case is not insanely complicated, your injuries aren't severe, the time limit starts running from the time you're released from care. And then you have roughly another 90 days if you're going to settle it. So from start to finish, it can be anywhere from 6 to 9 months on average for, kind of basic soft tissue injuries, nothing that's life altering. And that's pre-suit. Anytime you file a lawsuit, your new time limit starts to run, and you're talking a year on the short end to 2 to 3 years on the long end. If you're going to trial, you better believe it could be anywhere from 2 to 3 years. If you're going to settle it in the litigation process, it's another year. That's one of the things we sit and speak with our clients about and let them make an informed decision. Are you prepared to relive this and to show up for depositions and to answer discovery questions and spend another year? Or is the time value of money today worth compromise?
So here's the bigger question. How do you define success? For you and for 1-800-THE-WOLF accidental attorneys, what does a successful case look like? And is it purely about the settlement amount or verdict, or are there other factors you take into consideration as well?
Yeah, so I'm a champion of my client's cause. And I ask them, let's work backwards. If you came into my office and you had been in an accident, you said, hey, how do you think this is going to go? I would always start by asking you, in a perfect world, what is your desired outcome? Is it a lot of money? Is it your health? Is it your peace? And then I work my way backwards. My personal definition of success in life is very simple, and it's simply peace and happiness. Like, not to go all Buddha here, but peace and happiness. And I've found that the results that we get our clients bring them both a lot of times. And maybe it's not the perfect, but it's enough that then I feel successful. Whether I've gotten a client $1,000 or $100,000, if I have brought them peace and or happiness, or I'm being measured based on what they told me in that initial discussion, all I want's that money, I will go get that for them. And so my measure of success is, did I do a good job in that I helped you achieve your desired outcome? Not the perfect one necessarily, but the desired one.
Yeah. Can you think of a case that might not have been the biggest dollar amount, but you still consider it a win? And what makes it feel that way?
A couple of them. Some of my most rewarding cases were, not settled for more than $50,000 because the odds were stacked against us and because no one else wanted to take the case, or because it was hard. And I take a lot of pride in doing the things that other attorneys don't do. Case in point, sweetest little old woman client was shopping at her local grocery store, which I cannot name because of the confidentiality. This is just crazy fact pattern. This is what I was telling you before. Like, the fact patterns are so interesting. And there was a drunk patron who convinced someone at the store to blow up an inflatable pool shark. And that drunk patron took the giant inflatable pool shark down the aisles, completely wasted, and smacked my little old lady client on the back of the head. Now, it doesn't seem like much. It's a silly fact pattern, except for when she was driving home, her retina became detached. Now, what happened? She hired another soft-ass law firm who only takes easy cases when liability has been established. And as soon as the grocery store's insurance company denied the claim, dropped her. And so who's going to help her? So we get involved and I'll explain why. Legally, these stores are not responsible for the criminal acts of a third party. But they do have a duty to their patrons to not go out of their way to create an unsafe environment. And so we were able to show that the store violated its own policy in inflating this thing, and that, yes, it did cause an injury. And so we filed a lawsuit, and before we even took a deposition, we were able to get her some money. And so and this is an example of, I thought the case was worth much more, but my client was happy and at peace with the settlement that we got her, because her surgery was like $6,000 and she wasn't out of pocket much. And they put the retina back and she was older and there were some complications. But I mean, I think it was around $50,000. And then the second case was just an exercise in being unreasonable to the opposing side, because I will meet you where you're at. If you're going to be unreasonable, I'll be unreasonable. And it was a $10,000 settlement. And it was a premises liability case at a department store where a basket had fallen on a lady's toe. And I probably wouldn't have taken the case unless another friend, another attorney who was not sure if he was up to the challenge, wanted to help a former client of his. And so that one, and then a third one we had where a woman fell down in her own apartment because the floor was coming up. And she knew the floor was coming up. And she had put 2 or 3 work requests in. And by the time they got there, she already tripped and fallen on it and hurt her leg. She got $75,000. Another one, multiple law firms wouldn't take a case. A lady tripped at a bank on a small strip, hurt herself. They laughed. They laughed. The attorney for the bank, or the adjuster for the bank, laughed when I told them it was a 6-figure case. They laughed. And we ended up getting her $125,000. I don't think any other law firm could have done that, because they wouldn't have taken the time to develop the case. They would have glanced at the facts at intake and they would have said no. But the amount of pain that this woman was in and the life-changing impact it had, at the end of the day, made me happy.
Before we move on, is there anything about how you practice or how 1-800-THE-WOLF Accident Attorneys operates that might surprise people, something that's not typical in personal injury law?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, we're not your grandfather's attorney. We are very technology forward. All of our stuff is based in the cloud. Each case we work in kind of I would say, in a team environment. So once you sign up with us, you are going to be assigned a case manager, could be assigned an attorney. We have an independent bills and records clerk that works on your cases. Everything is housed in the cloud. Today, some people believe, I have to hire an attorney. I got to go in their office. I got to read paperwork. I've got to show up and do all these things. We're just set up different. Like, literally, I would say 70% of our clients, they never step foot in the office. Everything is done digitally. And again, we're getting superior results. All of our results speak for themselves. So I think people would be surprised to learn that technology is playing a role and allowing us to help them more. So, for example, we might get into litigation and need to go to mediation. In the past, the client would have to come in, we'd have to drive, we'd have to sit somewhere for half a day. Now we're able to do those virtually. We're able to conference the clients in. And so we're able to, it's just enabled us to help more people and reach more in a convenient way that doesn't require their presence. Even the documents we're able to send straight to their phone using our cloud-based system. They can review, upload, send back, text with us, just completely not your grandpa's attorney, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, got to keep up with the technology, right? What's something about your process that clients tend to comment on most?
The convenience and the communication. So as I mentioned before, we're very technology forward, and that creates an environment of convenience for our client. They're already stressed out. They're already running around trying to get their vehicles fixed and having to go in and see a doctor. The technology that we have makes it to where they don't have to step foot in the office from the day that, even from signing, from the consultation to signing their documents to getting their checks. I love all of my clients, and we're always here and all the attorneys are available. But I think what we hear is like, wow, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. That was convenient. And the empathy. So we understand that our clients are going through a tough time, and sometimes that means they're short with us, but we all understand that here. And so we're empathetic to our clients. We're sympathetic to our clients. And so communication and ease with which our process works, I would say, are two big ones.
That's great. Is there a way you do things that other firms in your space typically don't?
So I would say one, being available in person and digitally, so for the client that wants to come in and be attorney facing, meet the team, meet the staff, we have an amazing office situated in the middle of the Metroplex, an office over in Fort Worth, office in Houston. And so if people want to come in and enjoy the environment we've created here and meet with us, we're always available. If people don't, they don't have to. You can do it digitally. So that's not the case with every firm. Also, some firms kind of gatekeep their attorneys. Anytime our clients request an attorney consultation, they'll be able to speak to an attorney. Some law firms don't do that. It's, hey, you have to talk to your case manager or your paralegal. And granted, there are times where those are the front lines of communication, but we always make attorneys available for the clients when they need them.
I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Take us through your career journey from law school to launching 1-800-WOLF Accidental Attorneys. What did that path look like, and who did you work with along the way?
Yeah, so law school, when I was in law school, I started arguing mock appeals with moot court. It was really the first part of my practical experience. And then I started interning for a felony criminal judge down in Broward County in South Florida. So it is the Wild West. I thought I wanted to be a criminal attorney, but really I went through a process of elimination on the things I didn't want to do. So through that internship with a judge, I was hired by a South Florida law firm, had been around since the 70s, very well-known mid-sized firm, where I was able to get a lot of really good hands-on experience. I worked directly with the attorneys, drafting motions, and then was on the criminal side, and then was eventually moved over into the personal injury department. So on my 2L year in law school, I was working actively in a personal injury law firm, drafting demands, working on cases with professional athletes and big premises liability cases and wrongful death. And so I was actually, in the words of Drake, I started from the bottom. Now I'm here. I was writing demand letters, old school paper files, digging through them, going through medical records, trying to catch things, sitting with the attorneys, re-reviewing. So it was a lot of really practical experience. And then after law school, that firm hired me, and I worked assisting in their litigation department until ultimately I moved back to Texas. When I moved back to Texas, the family business became real estate. And so I had a sister who was a practicing attorney, and we joined forces, and we did business litigation, and personal injury. So it wasn't always 100% personal injury. We helped real estate developers, business professionals, and I filed all of the lawsuits and worked on the litigation for that. And then somewhere along the line, corporate America came calling and one of the largest banks in the United States and one of the largest commercial real estate firms gave me an opportunity to come on and work in a cross-functional team based on my background. And believe it or not, I handled everything, and I had almost a $300 million budget there. By the time I left, I was managing a team of 30, and we were handling a lot of the real estate related stuff on the retail side for this bank in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada. And so they asked me to actually take on a larger team, a team of 50, which would have meant I would have been in charge of all of the strategy for not only their retail banking operations, but their administrative operations. And then I would have had a much larger team of 50 plus and a double budget, close to $500 million. And at the same time, I had my own law firm running and scaling where I was still servicing some of my clients. And I made the decision that instead of helping the big banks, I would come double down and help more of my own clients, and decided to only take on the personal injury cases. And so that's when 1-800 The Wolf Accident Attorneys was born. Actually, we trademarked the name The Wolf of Law Street, and kind of caught fire and started getting popular on social media a little bit. And so we just leaned into that, and I kind of went back to my roots. Like I said, back in South Florida, almost 15 years ago, working in that firm, and then working my way up both with my own law firm and through corporate America. I've learned a lot of different and interesting lessons, and I've worked on thousands of cases, ranging from $1,000 cases all the way up to cases for billion-dollar companies involving hundreds of millions of dollars in controversy. So I've been trusted to lead teams consisting of hundreds of millions of dollars, all the way down to cases that are worth 1,000. But I treat all of the clients the same, whether it's $1,000 case or $100 million case.
Looking back at all of your experiences, is there a role or experience that you didn't really appreciate at the time, but now see it as pivotal in your story?
Yeah, I learned very early on, when I didn't really have a ton of clients. When I couldn't do for myself, my motto was like, let's do for others. And if they can't afford it, let me find a way to help them. And so very early in my career, when I was doing some of the litigation and business litigation, I had someone come to me, and they were having a business dispute and they needed help, and they did not really have a way to pay. But I understood that if I didn't help them, somebody probably wouldn't. And was it annoying at times? Yeah, because oftentimes your most demanding clients are the ones that aren't really paying. It's the stuff that you do for free that becomes the biggest occupier of your time. And through that, at the end of that case, the defendant in the case, he came to sign over all of his shares to my office, all of his shares in this business. And he said to me, like, you did a really good job, outclassed my attorney. I wish I had hired you. I'm going to refer you business in the future. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this thing was so contentious. It went on for months. I was just like, yeah, I just don't ever want to see you again, but that's cool. Thanks. That's an interesting compliment. Fast forward, he shows up with a case for me, and it was the first international litigation that I ever worked on. I ended up essentially acting as their in-house counsel, because we did not have enough resources in my office to fight fights on multiple continents. So I associated with another law firm, and they did my highest paying and best client for a long time. And so sometimes doing things for free, just simply in service of others, will pay dividends 10 times later in life in a way you would least expect. And so I treat every opportunity to help someone with that kind of that same energy.
So over the course of your career, I'm sure there have been cases that really stand out. What are some of the cases or achievements you're most proud of? Maybe not necessarily the biggest headlines, but the ones that really meant the most to you.
Some of the cases that have meant the most to me, we'll start there, and then we can talk a little bit about the achievements. I don't like talking about that stuff. That stuff comes, but it's there nonetheless. I have a case I'm actively working on, and where I'm able to actually connect with a family in a way that kind of transcends the case and become more meaningful and impactful in each other's lives are always amazing to me. So case in point, I have a matter right now. It's in litigation, and a family and a young son, he was 10 years old, lost his father in a tragic accident at work. And, seeing this 10, 11-year-old boy lose his sole provider and his dad, meeting with the parents who are just salt of the earth family, and seeing their grieving profoundly impacted me, and to kind of help keep the legacy of some of our clients who have passed away. We are actively in litigation. We've been able to make some recovery already through a death benefit for his child. But more importantly, we started a nonprofit, and I sit on the board of that nonprofit now in the deceased client's memory, and become very close with the family. And so those things mean the world to me when, like, I'm serious when I say my clients are my family and their causes are my causes, and there's only so much time in the day. And then another case where it's not even about the money, because there's not enough limits in the world to bring back this family's daughter. She was crossing the street. She was 19 years old, and she was hit and killed. The family wanted answers, and so my commitment to them was, we'll get you answers. And tragically, in a lot of these cases, there are not policy limits, or defendants do not have sufficient enough assets to ever bring someone back. When we get to the end of the road on those cases, and we've still been able to get people, like I said, peace without money, it's very impactful to me. And then in terms of how we go about our business and the things that we do here, I was inducted as a Texas Bar Foundation Fellow. That was a really meaningful one to me. People that it's reserved for the top 1/3 of 1% of attorneys in the state. Wow. And so I'm very proud to be a Texas Bar Foundation Fellow. At times, we've received awards for being one of the top 10 Best Attorney Award, Lawyers of Distinction Awards. We've won, I've been named a Rising Star by Super Lawyers. Those achievements, those like accolades, they pale in comparison to just helping people on a daily basis and seeing the smiles on their faces and letting them know that through the tragedy, they have someone they can lean on and they care about. And so some of those wrongful death cases where even though the money wasn't there, but we got a result that meant answers or peace, being involved in charitable foundations and being able to help start those nonprofits in my late clients' memories, that's big time to me.
Yeah, that's incredible. This kind of leads into my next question. So beyond the cases you take on, how do you contribute to the legal community, whether that's mentoring, teaching, writing? Are there ways you're involved beyond your day-to-day practice?
Yeah, so I think that we communicate a lot. And like I said early on, that even some of my competitors, I consider them my peers. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so I am an open book. We've had multiple interns here. We have shared strategy, both business strategy and legal strategy with other attorneys. Routinely, I have other attorneys call me and ask for my advice in particular situations on cases. So I think more than anything, being present, we do attend a number of attorney-based events. So the state bar requires us to perform continuing legal education to make sure our skills are sharp. So we show up at those. Any type of event in the industry. So the personal injury law industry, both vendors and attorneys, there's either an event or a speaker or an opportunity. And so more than anything, our presence and our willingness to share with others sets us apart within this community. And I think you could call 9 out of the 10, maybe 10 out of the 10 personal injury attorneys out of the phone book that know me will hopefully say nothing but good things, so it goes back to reputation. So we show up, we're present, we answer questions, we take on interns, we attend events, we do our CLE, we do grassroots events, we're at places with other attorneys regularly, and I'd say that's one of the ways we give back.
Are there any recognitions, awards, or honors that have actually been meaningful to you, ones that you feel reflect the work that you and your team are doing?
I'd say the biggest one I touched on earlier was being nominated by a fellow attorney that I really respected, and then being inducted and accepted as a Texas Bar Foundation Fellow. Again, it's the top 1/3 of 1% of attorneys in the state. And so that in of itself, it feels really good to have been recognized in that tradition and for excellence in my field and for and for the way that we give back. So that's a big one. And somewhere along the line, super lawyers became a thing and became popular. And so they look at a number of criteria there and take into account peer recommendations. And so to be named a rising star, a little bit earlier in my career as a super lawyer has meant a lot. But definitely the Texas Bar Foundation Fellow. At times, we're not so active these days, but we were a part of the Texas Trial Lawyer Association. And so a lot of good work happens there between attorneys as well.
Awesome. Congratulations on all those, by the way. That's incredible. I want to shift gears a bit and talk about something that's top of mind in the legal world right now. What's your take on personal injury and car accident? Where do you see it heading within the legal system over the next few years?
So it's quite interesting. The legislature in the state of Texas has been attempting some form of what we call tort reform, meaning they want to change the law on how certain things impact your car accident cases. So long term, I think we'll have a fight, just not even the basics of car accident injury. I think we'll have a political fight that will preserve the rights of people that have been injured to go in front of a jury and to get a jury award. So that's under attack. That's one thing. And we are working hard to try to lobby for, and I said I didn't want to be a lobbyist, but to put people in the legislature in Texas that understand plaintiff's personal injury and don't handicap the right for people to recover when they've been in an accident. Texas is progressive in that we have minimum limits required limits when it comes to insurance. So I think that as long as that's not impacted or reduced in any way, we should maintain the status quo there. I think that the minimum policy is $30,000 per person, $60,000 per accident, which is not nearly enough. So while I'm answering this question, I'll do a plug for your local insurance agent. Make sure you review your policy for uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, because you might get hurt and the person that hits you will have the minimum and it won't be enough. And in terms of where it's going, I think that vehicles are getting smarter, but people are getting dumber. A lot of the technology is designed to actually prevent accidents. Case in point, self-driving cars, Waymos, Teslas. I don't think that there are going to be less injuries in terms of car accidents and personal injuries because of it. I think that people will get lazier and less attentive, and the technology is not quite there. So we're going to see an interesting shift in how people are injured over the next few years, but they will still be getting injured because it still rains and people still drive like assholes.
Obviously, technology is changing literally everything, and the legal industry is no exception. What innovations do you think will transform the legal profession, and how are you leveraging technology and AI in your own practice right now?
So it's interesting. AI is helping us on the business side of things, not necessarily with the actual practice of law. So we've been exploring and have been early adopters and have considered investing into AI technology that helps us with our intake. So you heard me say earlier that one of the things that sets us apart is our intake process. And what AI can do is scrub our data to make sure that we are collecting and gathering the best information. We can do call overlays. We have AI voice agents that can actually have a full conversation with you so that you're able to go ahead and get a head start on getting the information out to the AI agent while they're connecting you with someone from our team. There are AI tools, some of which we have not jumped in on, but we have seen and have demoed, which actually live inside of our case management system. And so there is always a human component to practicing law. And I think it's just going to help us get more efficient, not necessarily replace us. Case in point, if we have all these paper documents uploaded like medical records and we go to write a demand and we have 1,000 pages of medical records, AI can say, hey, did you see on page 832 that there was a reference to an orthopedic surgeon that you didn't have in your demand letter? Oh, wow. Okay. We did miss that in the 1,000 pages we read. Let's get those amounts in here to help make sure we get credit for it on our demand. Wow. So the last point I'll make about AI and technology is that the practice of law is old, a little bit ancient, and has been one of those things that lawyers for hundreds of years have tried to protect in terms of how we practice and ethics, and it is slow moving. And so the legal profession will resist the adoption of AI. Where it'll be most impactful is the business process. But I don't think that, an AI chatbot can get up in court and have these conversations with juries, because unless they replace our system with AI juries and AI lawyers, in which case it's already the end, we might as well hunker down in a cave, then there'll always be a place for humans in the practice of law. Maybe less of them, but definitely a place.
One thing I've noticed is that a lot of people really don't understand their rights or the legal process until they're already in a pretty tough situation. So how important is client education and legal awareness to you, and what role do you feel like you play in helping people understand their options before they need a lawyer?
Oh man, in the words of Outcast, I am your neighbor here to help you on the front end. If you need some sugar, just come to the office. Don't go cooking without it. I say this like I'm joking, but I'm serious. People will start cooking. Like they'll have an accident and they won't educate themselves. They won't read the recipe and they won't come ask their neighbor for the sugar. And then the cake is all kinds of messed up. So number one, the second you get into the process, meaning the first thing most people do is after the accident, assuming they did everything correctly out there and called the police and took photos and went and got checked out. First thing they do is they get on with their insurance company and the other person's insurance company. And I will say that in both cases, they're trained to get you to commit to a version of events that will tank the rest of your case. So the education is important, and it's never too late to come get it from us. Like, just think of it, professor, student, or guidance counselor. It's never too late in the process to consult with us, but the sooner you do, the better, because there's some very big landmines that if you're not educating yourself, and it's free education, that's the thing. We give a free consultation, and whether you hire us or not, no pressure. At least you'll leave with enough information that you don't put yourself in a hole or make a really big mistake. You may not create value or get the best settlement, but at least you won't say or do something that could impact, your settlement value.
What are the guiding principles that shape your career and who inspires you? Now, I want to get a little bit more personal. What are the guiding principles of your career? Is there a quote, a motto, or a philosophy you come back to? And are there any leaders in law or in business that you really admire or draw inspiration from?
Yeah, never, never, never give up. Winston Churchill, and every day I'm hustling. Those two things feed into the core firm values, which is we treat every client and customer like family. We don't advise them any differently than we would our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. Relentless, aggressive representation. I think relentless, there we go, the never give up part. Aggressive, if you are not pushing the tempo is getting pushed on you. So we're going to make the first move, but the smart move. And then I said it before, representation. There are a lot of attorneys that don't adequately represent their client, and we want to show up for you and be there for you in a way that you deserve. And so those core set of values, when you combine them with the atmosphere that we've built in this office, within these four walls, with the team that we've handpicked, it's just unparalleled. The results actually do speak for themselves. And in terms of inspiration, I've drawn a lot on it's because it's twofold. This is a business, and if the business is not run effectively, it can't service the clients in the practice of law. I've drawn a lot on the way I was raised. We mentioned that earlier. My family values, my work ethic. I think those things keep me grounded. I'm a habitual reader. I think continuing to try to educate myself on how to constantly improve. And those are some things that if we just get 1% better every day, we're passing the benefit of that on to our clients.
Let's make sure people know how to find you. If somebody listening wants to follow you or find your content online, where should they go? What are the best places to keep up with you and 1-800-THE-WOLF Accident Attorneys?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. We have a great phone number, 1-800-THE-WOLF. You can call that from any phone, just 1-800-THE-WOLF, 1-800-THEWOLF.com. That's going to get you to our website. And then you can also find us on social media. So all the social media platforms, we're largest right now on Instagram. And so it's just Wolf of Law Street _ Follow us there. We actually do a lot of giveaways for the firm. We're very active in community engagement and giveaways. So we're a big fan of all the local sports teams. We are the official personal injury partner of FC Dallas, our professional soccer team. So you can find us out there. We are official partners of Cars and Coffee of Texas. So we're at all of their car shows activating the community. And we are official partners on Instagram with Find the Cash Dallas. So if you're into treasure hunting, we give away a lot of money on there every month, and you'll occasionally see me. But on the social side, I think if you got Instagram, start with the Instagram, Wolf of Law Street _ Check us out on YouTube, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, at 1-800-THE-WOLF Accident Attorneys. And so 1-800-THE-WOLF, 1-800-THEWOLF.com.
And for somebody listening who's been in an accident or knows someone who has and thinks they might need legal help, what's the best way to get in touch with you? How does somebody book a consultation or request a case evaluation with 1-800-THE-WOLF Accident Attorneys?
Yeah, so we've tried to make it easy for you guys. So you can go right on the website. If you don't feel like talking to a human, we have chat right there. It's live chat 24/7, 365. So 1-800-THEWOLF.com. You can request a consultation there, or you can live chat. You can also call in. Our phones are answered 24 hours a day, if day or night. If you call us at 3 a.m., someone's going to pick up. They're going to take your information down and then route it to the appropriate member of our team. Once that team member is back on board, they've already had a head start and they'll get in contact with you. You can also, you can get us on Instagram. You can send a DM there. But the best way I would say is call us, 1-800-THE-WOLF, or go on the website and simply enter into the chat feature or fill out the contact me form and we'll get in touch.
Aaron, this has been an incredible conversation. Before we wrap up, there's just one more question I have for you. What motivates you to keep doing this work and fighting for your clients?
It's the results. We've been talking for a little bit today, and I think the results speak for themselves, and that's not always measured in money. And we move differently here. We certainly stand on business. We get amazing results. We take the time to develop people's cases. I tell folks all the time, you can do it on your own. You can get 100% of a grape, or you could do it with us and we'll get you 65% of a watermelon. Really, 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 the results speak for themselves. And it's motivating to see people get peace, to get happiness. And it sure as hell makes me happy to see them get all that money. So we're good at it.
I love that. And for anyone listening, if you or someone you know has been injured in an accident in Texas and needs expert legal representation, Aaron Siddique and the expert team at 1-800-THE-WOLF Accident Attorneys are here to help. You can reach them at www.1800thewolf.com. That's www.1800thewolf.com, or call them directly at 1-800-THE-WOLF. Aaron, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us today. Any final thoughts you would like to share?
Yeah, if you're hit and you're hurt, you can work, call us. We'll get you racks for those injured backs. We'll get you cash for that crash. That's it.
Love it. Thank you so much for tuning into the very first episode of the Fort Worth Accident Attorney and Law with Aaron Siddique. Check the show notes for any links or resources, and we'll see you next time.